Namaskar and welcome to the inaugural session of the Electronics and Telecom Manufacturing Summit 2021, brought to you by MAIT. The theme for this year is 2030, the decade of electronics and telecom hardware for India. The inaugural session will set the context for ETMS 2021 and taking the directions and goals that India should aim for from government and industry leaders and towards introducing enabling measures for promoting the electronics and telecom hardware sector. Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to welcome our esteemed dignitaries for this session. As you know, we were earlier expecting the esteemed presence of Sri Sanjay Shamrao Dhotre, Honorable Minister of State for Education, Communications and Electronics and Information Technology Government of India, Dr. Ashwath Narayan Sen, Honorable Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka, and Sri Anshu Prakash, Secretary DOT. But due to the pandemic, they couldn't be here with us today as they are on COVID emergency duty. However, they have sent their best wishes for a successful event. I warmly welcome Sri Ajay Prakash Shani, Secretary MAIT. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Dr. Sandeep Chatterjee, Scientist F, MAIT. Mr. Mike Cobro, Senior Vice President and Logistics Cisco. Unfortunately, he too couldn't join us, but he has sent his recorded message, which we will play later during the session. Mr. Nitin Kunkoliankar, President MAIT and Director and Board Member Synergy EMS. Mr. Harish Krishnan, Vice President MAIT and Managing Director, Public Affairs and Strategic Engagement Cisco. And Mr. Rajkumar Rishi, Vice President MAIT and Managing Director, CSP India Dell. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we will kickstart the proceedings of the inaugural session. Firstly, I would like to invite Mr. Harish Krishnan, Vice President MAIT, and request him to kindly deliver the welcome address.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third edition of the Electronics and Telecom Summit 2021. We initially planned to do this last March, and then the pandemic set, and we decided to postpone, and then thought we'll do it in January. Again, things were not receding, and when we finally thought the COVID was behind us and scheduled it in April, we have this huge tsunami and a surge. It was almost like Indian team in Australia with the MAIT secretariat. A lot of people, themselves fell to COVID. There's a lot of temptation to postpone this event, but we thought this will be a great opportunity for us in India and as for industry to show resilience, to go forward and go ahead and continue to do this event. So I think I would like to thank each one of you who are participating today, and we will make this, we will play through this adversity and ride this like we've ridden other adversities. I would like to especially thank Mr. Ajay Sani for being with us despite the circumstances that we are in. So your presence here today is really underlines your deep commitment to MAIT and to industry, and it's a great source of encouragement and reassurance to all of us. So thank you very much, Mr. Sani, for being with us today. We're now living through what I would call as a golden age of electronic manufacturing in India. For decades, we've been talking about becoming an electronic superpower. However, in the last few years is when we're really making those bold steps and marching towards this goal. As a player and an observer in this electronic manufacturing space in India, I'm seeing some major shifts in our thinking and policy making, specifically three shifts. Number one, there is a clear introspection of India's strengths and gaps and an open mind to fill these gaps. Secondly, in the policy space, in the past, we used to be a bit short-term thinking, trying to see how do we become a superpower in 2 years or for 3 years. Now there's clearly a long-term thinking, looking at it in a more comprehensive fashion over a period of 5 years. In the past, the focus was on import substitution, and now we clearly have an export focus. India for India is interesting, but India for the world is what is really exciting. And that is a journey that we're all in. Finally, the PLI scheme captures all these 3 points extremely well. It's a game changer and encapsulates all these points that I mentioned. It is a 5-year plan. It addresses the cost parity issue. It focuses on exports, and it welcomes both Indian companies and global companies. And the government of India has set apart something like $8 billion for the ICT industry, which is path-breaking and definitely will take India to a new horizon. The current push for electronic and telecom manufacturing is therefore very different. We've had several government leaders, starting with the Prime Minister, say that Atmanirbhar Bharat is not self-isolation, but it is about assimilating with a global value chain. Government of India has definitely widened its approach and is more strategic than ever. The PLI scheme is one such intervention, but for India to become a global hub for electronics and telecom, India needs to adopt a 360 degrees approach, including component ecosystem, infrastructure, logistics, transportation, R&D, skilled workforce, and most importantly, ease of doing business. In this summit, we have carefully curated the sessions that will enhance such collaboration with industry and government, and we hope to emerge wiser. Apart from traditional aspects of electronics and telecom manufacturing, India, like sourcing of components, component manufacturing, collaboration between large companies and MSMEs, we've identified a few areas that will pave way for 2030 becoming truly India's decade in the sector. Our vision is to promote electronic hardware design, electronic hardware repair and services outsourcing industries in India. Not only will these new thrust areas generate additional revenue, but increase employment opportunities. Through this summit, we want to create a platform for perspectives to be shared between industry and government to create enabling policies. The past physical summits had gathered about 250 leaders representing startups, Indian global companies across OEMs and EMS, etc. This year, despite the pandemic, we have seen a very enthusiastic registration across the virtual section. And this year's program has been the most comprehensive program that we have ever done. We're also launching the Made in India product and a robust report on e-waste awareness during the session. I hope the next 2 days give you a great perspectives from government, global and industry leaders, which will help us as individuals, corporation, sectors, more importantly, as India as a nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shri Krishnan, for your warm welcome address and also for setting the context for the program today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Mr. Nitin Kunkolyankar, President MAIT and Director and Board Member, Synergia EMS. He's a thought leader in the electronics manufacturing arena. He's a recognized industry stalwart and has donned leadership roles in prestigious industry associations. He has been elected consecutively for 3 terms as the President of MAIT. He was also a member of the professional management group set up by the Honorable Chief Minister of Goa to advise the government on strategic decisions and special economic development of the state. He was the president of the Goa Chamber of Commerce and Industry and has been a member on the board of the National Executive Council of CII. He's also on the National Managing Committee of ASSOCHAM and a member of the Higher Education Council headed by the Honorable Chief Minister of Goa, among many others. With these words, may I now invite Mr. Nitin Kunkolyankar, requesting him to kindly deliver his address.
Yeah, thank you. So good afternoon. My gratitude to Shri Ajay ji for being with us this afternoon in spite of his difficulties. Somehow he he agreed to be here. I'm grateful to you, sir, for being with us here today. My colleagues in MAIT and Vice Presidents Rishi and Harish for enabling this event in a big way. George and his team for again taking a major share and major lead in driving this event. So with this, I would like to start my formal address, presidential address. All the dignitaries present on the screen and participants who are not visible on the screen, but they are there in the background, always with MAIT. First of all, let me extend a very warm welcome to this event. And it's a most appropriate time to hold such event. The topics chosen were very carefully thought of. We always talked about having deficiency in manufacturing in India due to lack of component value chain. And for the first time, we are talking about sourcing from India, participating in the global value chain. we're talking about how to take component manufacturing very effectively here. So this event is going to focus more on the supply chain centric aspects. So before 2000, India was actually much ahead of many of the South Asian countries in manufacturing, especially in assembly of hardware. Somehow 2000 to 2005, China started emerging. And in 2005, India signed ITA 1, followed with ASEAN and other treaties. With duty inversion related issues really crippled this industry, and we went backward. China started promoting aggressively and they really went forward. Even the Taiwanese who were looking at one time to move towards India, they moved towards China, and India lost substantially. Thanks to the vision and leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister, when this government came to power in 2014, they first corrected the inversion of duty. The inverted duty was corrected, and then the process started. They came out with Make in India, they came out with Digital India, wherein manufacturing was a bigger thrust, and then we had Atmanirbhar scheme. And especially last year, when we had world was caught in pandemic, most of the countries realize that relying on one or two supply chains is very, very risky. And that's where the global thought process was changing to have more than one supply chains. And that is where I must congratulate Government of India, Ministry of IT and Ministry of Electronics and IT for enabling this and driving first initiative of PLI scheme in 2020, started with mobiles, which has been extended now to many more products. The PLI scheme is very unique, as Harish has just mentioned now. The scheme is really outstanding. For the first time, this scheme talks about domestic as well as local manufacturing getting together. It also talks about a very good incentive for SME sector. It invites everybody to be on a nation building agenda. In the past, we lost substantially to our neighboring states. They took up good opportunities. Now FTAs were signed, which went against India. India's exports came down considerably. But this is an opportunity now where we can capitalize FTAs by partnering with this PLI. Especially, this PLI is going to be a change, a drastic change in the thought process of the government from import substitution-led policies to export-led growth. And this export-led growth will ultimately bring in design-led growth for the country, will bring in a lot of value chain, will develop value chain, will create new supply chains, and will bring India on the path of prosperity. I think the government of India should also play an enabler's role, especially Ministry of Electronics and Telecom. They should take the agenda of making components available. And to begin with, we should look at demand aggregation of components. And we can start with plastic molding, sheet metal. Today, it's not only electronics, but every segment requires molding. Every segment requires sheet metal. And there is a huge capability available in this country, especially in MSME. If we can consolidate this, we can create a cluster, even a virtual cluster. I mean, they need not be physically present at one location, but if the demand could be mapped and could be shared, it can create a revolution by giving a competitive edge, and we can compete with any part of the world in providing best of these components, which on an average contribute to 15 to 25% of the costing of the products. So I think this is where we need to begin with. That is the first step. Then we also need to talk about when I took over 4 years back as a president of MAIT, we kept three top priorities in front of MAIT. One was manufacturing, second was ease of doing business, and third was demand aggregation. And we tried to focus our actions towards this. And I must tell you that MAIT is largely successful. Of course, we were not in a direct limelight, but in the background, we had done a lot of jobs to promote manufacturing in the country. and I'm grateful to the support of MEIT also in this regard. Every time in the beginning when we used to meet Sani ji, he used to say, "Kuch karo manufacturing ke liye, come out with good inputs and all." And I can happily share today we have really contributed immensely. On on taking PLI forward, Government of India has certainly created a policy which is more financial incentive, and they have created a direction. But it is now for the states to respond. The bigger challenge lies in the states, and there is a huge gap in the states. There is a disconnect within the state or between the state and center. I think there has to be an attempt to bridge this gap. So today the scheme talks about vertical expansion and horizontal expansion as well. Whenever you carry out any expansion of manufacturing units, certainly it warrants that you need to go for higher power, higher requirement of land. There are constraints in most of the states. Getting land is not an easy task. Getting power is a problem. And these issues of expansion should be dealt with. I think the Ministry of MEIT should take the leadership in bringing the states in on table and taking this agenda forward. There is corruption also existing in some of the states where people are not very cooperative, and I think this is where central government should crack a whip. This is part of the nation building. PLI and expanding manufacturing and making India as a manufacturing is not alone the responsibility of industry or central government. It's a nation building exercise which is going to bring in a lot of economic prosperity, social strengthening. It will create a lot of opportunities for the government, and internationally also, politically also, the regional balance also could be well maintained. Otherwise, in the past, the economic activity, larger economic activity happened in China or other nations, and we were impacted. It's time to come out with a larger agenda. Sir, I must also share with you this PLI scheme is not only going to benefit industry, but also going to build substantial benefits to the government of India and the state governments in terms of tax and non-tax revenues. By way of value additions, as the value addition progresses, the more the revenue would come to the state governments and central governments by way of GST. Income tax collections would be much, much higher. You will be getting a lot of service tax. I mean, there will be a lot of services that would be generated out of this growth, which will benefit the service sector, and as a result of which multiplier effect will be very, very high, unlike what used to be in past. Look at the stock market, where the stocks of most of the companies in PLI has gone up considerably high, which is again a wealth creation for the entrepreneurs and investors, which makes the system very inclusive. At the same time, government also gets considerably by way of taxation from there. So we must factor all these things and try and give due recognition to the industry. And especially I am referring to the IT hardware PLI scheme, where the pattern of incentive is needs to be enhanced. I think PC was the core of electronic hardware some years back, and I personally feel there is a huge potential if we make complete PC manufacturing and build a PC value chain. I think India will gain a lot. A larger value chain also will be created. There is a need to enhance. Other schemes are quite nice, quite reasonable, but I think PC server and tablet scheme needs a relook, and I would urge that MEIT takes this in consideration. Sir, we also need to understand as we are looking at export-led growth, export cannot be effectively handled if our port economics is not good. Today, ports are having challenges. The connectivity to the port is not so good. Uh, of course, the Sagarmala project is on. Bombay to Gurgaon corridor is on, and Bombay to Kanyakumari corridor also is almost getting ready. This will make a big impact on nation's port connectivity and all. However, so a lot needs to be done in connecting rest of the ports and making them efficient. India does not have an international transshipment point, as a result of which we need to rely on multiple transshipments, and the import and export of the cargo becomes very expensive. So we don't become very efficient in terms of costing of freight becomes very high. We need to build up synergies with the nearby ports like Salalah or Dar es Salaam, so that India can have a direct access of markets in the Middle East and Africa and nearby regions, even in Europe. So we need to also take this in consideration when we introduce schemes like PLI. Manufacturing will go multifold, but there has to be a port support. And even at present, we need to work out on reforms which can also make ease of doing business while dealing with the ports. So these are some of the points I have just touched upon. And on other fronts, we had come out with other requirement like component hub. It is extremely essential that we also create a component hub wherein some of the components which we cannot manufacture, and it is mandatory that we need to import it till our line settles down. We should encourage setting up of free trade warehousing zones in a modified zone, and component hub is a must. And in this regard, MAIT has been communicating with your department and other ministries as well. And lastly, I would like to touch upon electronic repair services, the project which is very dear to my heart, and I've been chasing this for long. Sir, on a service front, NESCOM and software industry has done extremely well as far as getting a very big name for our nation. But today, India has greatest potential to become a hardware or electronic hardware repair hub. There can be some concerns about e-waste and all, but that could be dealt with. There is a potential of $20 billion revenue immediately and at least 5 million jobs in a couple of years, 2 to 3 years. Indian mindset has one of the best, Indians have one of the best skill sets. And today in repair services, we can create one of the best base for the world. And we can create best employment, best paying, best paymasters could be coming from this line. And I think this will make India a very strong nation. And I would urge upon your ministry, along with DOT, to take a lead in this and help us in setting up ERSO hubs in this country. I once again thank my colleagues and secretariat for organizing this event in spite of a lot of constraints. Honorable Minister for State could not join us due to this COVID-related issues. Many people are affected. It was a challenge for us we were not sure till 3 days back whether, yes, everything will go properly. Thank God and thanks to you all, we have at least begun with this conference. I wish you all the best. I am sure this conference will bring in a lot of success to many of the Indian entrepreneurs who are participating in this event, and also those who are not participating, with whom we can always share the content of this event. Thank you and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Mr. Konkoliankar, for your insightful presidential address. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Mr. Mike Kopro, Senior Vice President, Manufacturing and Logistics, Cisco. He is responsible for leading Cisco's global manufacturing and logistics operations, including the enablement and improvement of global manufacturing, global logistics, and global manufacturing engineering. He leads the teams responsible for the design of Cisco's global operational manufacturing network, Cisco's forward and reverse logistics, and the business management of Cisco's operational partners. He's also a leader in supporting Cisco's strategic efforts in key growth markets. With more than 30 years of operations experience, he has a track record in leading global teams operating large factories. Ladies and gentlemen, with these words, we will now present the video message of Mr. Mike Kopro, which will put forth the industry perspective for us. Can we have the video message, please?
Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Kubro, the Senior Vice President of Global Manufacturing and Logistics at Cisco Systems. I want to thank the Manufacturers Association of Information Technology for inviting me to speak today with the attendees of the Electronics and Telecom Manufacturing Summit in India. Before we get started, I want to say that I hope everybody is safe and healthy and doing well during this pandemic. We're watching in the news this latest wave hitting India, and we're with you, and we hope you get through this safely and healthy as fast as possible. For those of you not familiar with Cisco, our entire focus as a company is to help our customers connect, secure, and automate in a cloud-first world. We connect people together with world-class, enterprise-grade collaboration tools. We connect users with devices, applications, and data with industry-defining networking and compute technology. Connect, secure, automate. This is how we differentiate. Helping our customers around the world solve these challenges is not only our privilege, but also our most pressing responsibility. We do business with over 98% of the Fortune 500. We're about $50 billion in annual revenue US. We have over 75,000 employees and 60,000 partners, number 1 or 2 in most market segments that we serve. We have over 23,000 patents, and we're raising that number higher with over $6 billion US annually and spent on research and development. We have offices in almost every country in the world, and we're very proud of the fact that we've been ranked best place to work back to back now in 2019 and 2020 by Fortune magazine. And last year, Gartner voted our supply chain number 1 in the industry. The Gartner ranking of being number 1 supply chain in our industry is even more rewarding when you think about the size of our operations and the complexity of our products and portfolio. We have operations in over 14 countries at 40 locations, and we have an extended team in our manufacturing base of over 25,000 people. On any given day, we have over 41,000 orderable items for our customers, and we process over 2,000 orders daily. And that includes over 350,000 items that we ship every day. We're supported in the market by over 600 suppliers that supply us with over 140,000 unique components. And at our factories around the world, we're producing over 80,000 circuit cards per day. And all of this goes into a broad product portfolio, which is divided into built to stock or standard type items, but we have a large portfolio of products that are configured to order for each specific customer. Doing this over time, we've flexed our muscles on business continuity. Like most companies back in 2003, we were affected by SARS, and this is where we really started focusing on business continuity planning for our supply chain. And then in 2005, with hurricanes Katrina and Rita, the H1N1 pandemic, the Iceland volcano in 2010, the Fukushima nuclear disaster in 2011, the flooding in Thailand, the Kunshan factory blast, Hurricane Harvey, component supply challenges globally in 2018, and we were also affected by the China tariffs and the Infineon shortage in 2019, and now COVID. So as a supply chain, as a broad organization, we've really been able to build up our muscle and deal as operators in a very dynamic world. And this served us well going into the COVID situation last year. Our COVID response was broken into a few different phases. In phase 1, when China started getting impacted initially by the pandemic, we were able to quickly relocate that product production into our factories in Mexico and the United States. And then in phase 2, as the US and Mexico started getting affected by the pandemic, we were able to transfer those orders back to our factories located in China and also in Europe. And then in phase 3, when Southeast Asia started getting impacted and we started having production difficulties in that region, we were able to shift that production back to Mexico and the US and China. We moved billions of dollars of orders around the world to keep our customer demand going and to keep our operations as seamless as possible given the pandemic and what our people and our customers were going through. So let's spend a few minutes talking about what a company like Cisco, in terms of a global manufacturer, looks at when we're considering where to locate our manufacturing operations. I know this is a subject of high interest in India and in this market segment at this time. We have lots of choices when we look at where to put factories around the world, but we're looking primarily in a few different areas. Infrastructure and logistics, our ability to get components as needed into the geography where the manufacturing is going to be located, and also to be able to get that product back out through airports, through seaports, over highways is a very critical aspect of ours. because we have very quick turnaround times for our customer orders, very short lead times. So the infrastructure is critically important. Of course, we're concerned about trade, compliance, tariffs, taxes, other types of government policy that can help create an environment that's suitable and sustainable for manufacturing. We're also extremely concerned about social and environmental sustainability. So that's a very large part of our assessment on different geographies of where we locate the facilities. We take our obligation to the planet very seriously. We're also looking at national and local and municipal governments to create an environment and a framework that facilitates the growth of business. We look at the general business environment relative to a trained and skilled workforce. And we also look to see and build those locations into our risk, resiliency, and flexibility plans, as we talked about earlier. Having the ability to be resilient and move our manufacturing through facilities around the world to have that duplicate or tertiary capability is critically important. So when we need those factories around the world, we've got to be able to make sure that they're online. These are dynamic factors. We monitor them constantly. We're always trying to optimize our global network. Our customer base is dynamic. Economic factors around the world are changing. Different government policies also mandate that we continue to evaluate our current manufacturing footprint and try to stay ahead of those changes as we optimize the entire network on the benefit of our customers and for our company. We're also looking and evaluating that we have a robust supply base as close to the factories as practical and the infrastructures we mentioned earlier. One of the challenges we've seen as we look and evaluate manufacturing in India for telecommunications is a lot of those key suppliers are still located in Southeast Asia and China. And so I would encourage those that are in positions to influence this to also look at not only locating manufacturing in India, but the supporting supply base that's needed to make that manufacturing very dynamic in terms of changing customer demand. Obviously, we also look at a skilled and motivated workforce. So we're looking at employment areas, educational opportunities, because all of these factories run on a motivated workforce, and that culture is important and that skill set is important. Today's manufacturing is becoming more and more and more complex in terms of the education needed for manufacturing, the manufacturing workforce that will manufacture these products. And lastly, we maintain a long-term view. It's sometimes easy to think about and take advantage of government incentives anywhere in the world, and they're important, but I would encourage people in the audience to think about the long-term view of manufacturing. Too many times as you try to incentivize or attract companies into a manufacturing base, it's easy to get sidetracked or focused on short-term areas. And companies like Cisco want to be somewhere for the long haul. And so taking that long-term view over time, over decades, of what is needed to build that foundation, I think is critically important. It's been a pleasure to talk with you today and explain a little bit about our company, as well as some of the factors that we look at, and I think you'll find us not unique in this area, the factors that we look at when we evaluate where do we locate our manufacturing base around the world. I wish you the best of health and safety as we continue globally to get through this pandemic, and I wish you the best of luck with your summit this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mike Cobro, for sharing the industry perspective with us. Thank you for your good wishes, and we do wish your safety from our end. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to now invite Shri Arijit Sen, who's the Vice President, Government Affairs and Public Policy, Vivo. And may I please request him to kindly introduce and welcome our esteemed dignitaries from Government of India.
Thank you, Sanhati. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Shri Ajay Prakash Sani, Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, to join us at this platform. For most of us here, Sri Sahni needs no introduction, but given that this is a global audience, I am deeply honored to give a background about Mr. Sahni for everyone's understanding and benefit. Uh, Sri Ajay Sahni is a mechanical engineer and an IAS officer from the Andhra Pradesh cadre. He has handled various assignments in the state of Andhra Pradesh, covering land administration to law and order, including quasi-judicial functions, rural development, health and family welfare, communication technology, e-governance, etc. And he has played a lead role in the total literacy campaign taken up in the Nizamabad district in the early 90s. He was also a chief catalyst in the establishment of the International Institute of Information Technology in Hyderabad and its emergence as one of the premier institutions in our country in the computer science education sector. Uh, from the contributions of Mr. Sahni, there are too innumerable to note, and I'm going to stay with some of the key factors and the key points where his leadership has benefited and enabled our industry sector to grow. As the Secretary for MAIT, Sri Sahni has introduced and led from the front the production linked incentive scheme, which has already been spoken about. He has also been instrumental on the national policy for electronics for 2019, the modified electronic manufacturing cluster scheme, and several policy related data programs on the personal data protection bill and the non-personal data protection bill. With over 3 decades of experience in policymaking, especially when it comes to delivering online and infrastructure and making people digitally empowered, Sri Sahni is a powerhouse of knowledge and has formulated policies that have led to exponential growth in digital payments in India. I think under the current circumstances, one of the most significant things we need to thank Mr. Sahni for is his contribution towards the Arogya Setu app. That app alone is something that is probably holding the nation together still under the current ongoing pandemic. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me in giving a warm welcome to Shri Ajay Prakash Sahni, Secretary MAIT. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Sri Sen, for that wonderful and insightful introduction and citing the salient contributions of Sri Ajay Sahni. Sir, it is indeed our honor and privilege to welcome you, and I would like to now invite you to kindly deliver your keynote address.
Thank you, Sanhati, and thank you, Arijit. A very good afternoon to all of you who are assembled here from India. Good morning or good evening to those who are participating from outside. It's a great pleasure to be a part of the Electronics and Telecom Summit organized by MAIT. And this we find that other entities, Elsina and ISA, have also collaborated to some extent to bring in participants. It's a very apt time to be discussing the topics that have been set in the agenda. In electronic manufacturing, over the past 5 years, 2014 to 1920, we have grown electronics manufacturing in India by more than 23% year on year, compounded. 23% is quite a sort of good pace of growth. And when you grow at 23% year on year for so many years, the base also expands. And that is what has happened for us in India. And even while we were hit by the pandemic, we were able to come out with some new schemes. The production linked incentive for large scale manufacturing that was focused on mobile phones and components was quite successful, and that template, that format has actually been picked up by the Niti Aayog and by many other ministries. And now there are several sectors in which electronic manufacturing is incentivized through a production linked incentive. So this incentive is outcome based because the companies that do manufacturing here in India, do sales here in India or export, they get incentivized to do large scale manufacturing. We have also been active in bringing the entire component system together. Uh, the the need for that is quite apparent because in the first PLI alone, the commitments that global and Indian manufacturers have made for manufacturing over the next 4 years comes to about $140 billion, out of which more than $80 billion would go towards exports. So that's a range of manufacturing that requires a very large number of components and sub-assemblies. And the more these happen in India, the better is the value addition in all the product segments. Now that we are also moving towards a PLI in automotive electronics, we already have a scheme in medical electronics, medical devices. We have a scheme for air conditioners for a very large scale manufacturing of ACs in India, and many more areas in which electronic manufacturing is joining up with what has already happened uh, in smartphones, in feature phones, in TVs, in LED lights, etc. So it's a very opportune time to be coming into India. Even in this bleak period when the pandemic has hit us, in fact, it's not once, but the current wave is the second large wave. I do hope that all of you are safe and remain so during this phase of the pandemic. But even though the pandemic has hit us in this manner, over the next 5 years, uh, our expectation from the Ministry of Electronics and IT is that we should be able to grow electronic manufacturing in India not at a slower pace than 23%, but at a higher pace, which is quite a ambitious target because um, to plan to grow at 25% plus year on year is a very steep target for any geography. For this, we need to get many things right. We need to get the incentive structures right. We need to get the be able to compensate for some of the disabilities which are reducing over time, but we still have certain disabilities compared to the competing geographies, especially that we are focused on. We need to also get more and more component manufacturers into our system, complete the supply chain so that our dependence on stretched supply chains is reduced significantly. For this, we have a sort of a double bonus or a dual kind of an incentive when it comes to components, when it comes to semiconductors, when it comes to ATMP processes for semiconductors. In those areas, we incentivize the manufacturers not just with PLI, but we also provide a capex linked incentive for the investments. So, and this is deliberate because we believe that the more component manufacturers come into India and the better our ecosystem becomes, it paves the way for manufacturing in almost all the verticals. Apart from this, we are also taking up during this year, we have created a design for a fabless design program. In fact, a fabless design mission, which will shortly get unveiled, where we would once again focus on strength that is there in India. We would like more and more of the processors to be designed, of SIPs to be designed in India. Already, most of the giants in this space have very large teams in India that do the design here with the help of Indian engineers and designers, and then the manufacturing gets done outside. We are very keen that big, medium, and small companies get into this space and start filling up the gap in this space as well. And then in the recent period, Ministry of Electronics and IT has come to the market with a request for an expression of interest for semiconductor fab. This has already elicited some response, and we'll be closing this by 30th of April. And then, based on the on very helpful response that we have got from some of the majors, we will be formulating a scheme and coming out with a scheme inviting proposals to set up semiconductor fabs or foundries in India. We are also in the market currently with a request for an expression of interest in setting up of a display fab or more than one display fabs. In this as well, we are instead of creating a scheme entirely on our own, we have opted to reach out to the market to understand what kind of interest is there, what is it that the market expects from the government, from central government, and from the state governments, so that then we can formulate a scheme which is able to bring the have the desired outcome. Both for a fab foundry and for a display fab, there is huge demand as we move forward in the over the next 4 to 5 years. There is massive demand. Our estimate is that apart from though foundries account for only 20% of the chips that get used in electronic manufacturing, and the IDMs account for 80%. Even then, even in this 20%, there is room for at least 3, if not more, fabs, foundries with the capacity of something like 30,000 to 40,000 wafers per month, 12-inch wafers per month. Similar is the burgeoning demand for displays, and whoever does come in comes in and joins in at an early stage into this hugely growing market. There is one more factor that I would like to mention. I think Harish is here, and Cisco has always wanted to come in into electronic manufacturing in the telecom space in India, and a very good scheme has also got unveiled in that area. I'm sure not just Cisco, but all the other entities that are active in telecom are also participating. There's a massive upsurge of demand, especially we will see 5G and IoT come in, and it's a it'll be a really a place to invest and to manufacture and cater to that kind of demand. But one thing that I would like to mention very specifically is that the game so far has been for us uh, to catch up with the manufacturing which has been happening somewhere else. The world has moved on. They have been manufacturing at a very large scale, and it's only over the in the recent period that we have sort of made a comeback and we have momentum on our side. But it's all been a catch up game of catching up with the rest of the world. My hope is that as we build capacity, as we build momentum, as we build the capability of design and manufacturing here in India, and as the new technologies come in, as they are coming in very rapidly, the sensors, the devices in new domains, it's every single domain of the economy is embracing electronics. Agriculture will have digital technologies, including a lot of electronic base. Healthcare will have more and more of electronics. Education will have more and more of electronics. The demand for PCs, for laptops, for tablets, we have seen just a very tiny fraction of what that demand can be. A large number of students within the country still have neither a tablet nor a laptop. They are basically, whatever browsing they do is on a small format smartphone. Now, all of us understand that that is not enough. So there's a huge unmet demand. There's a huge potential for this also to happen. And as every sector of the economy goes digital, electronics is a very strong part of anything digital. And with the nationwide digital platforms that are taking shape, you have all seen Aadhaar take shape. After that, Unified Payments Interface, UPI, then the government e-marketplace, GEM. After that, GSTN as a platform which has unified the entire country through a single taxation system. And then the platforms which are now being created, one in healthcare, a nationwide public digital platform in healthcare, another one in education, which has taken beautiful shape, excellent shape, another one in logistics, another one in agriculture and primary sector. Each of these platforms will end up creating massive demand for things digital, and anything digital again requires calls for a lot of electronics. And this time, my hope is that the next round of electronic manufacturing that we will see here in the country will be products which are designed, which are not just designed but also manufactured here in India, which address specific needs of the market, which address specific needs of farmers or patients or students. And this is what I would like to welcome you all into. Do not stop your deliberations or do not focus your deliberations almost entirely on the existing product segments. It's the new product segments which are going to be overwhelmingly large. They are going to be very lucrative, and those are the segments where it's good to get to play in this field, which is still new, and where the newcomers might actually end up upstaging or sort of replacing many of the giants that we have seen in the field so far. So this is the hope with which I once again extend a very warm welcome to all of you. There is one production linked incentive scheme which is currently on, where we have invited requests for or proposals for manufacturing of laptops, tablets, all-in-ones, and also servers. In this context, I would like to mention that we have already got some very good response, and by end of the month, we are hopeful that we'll get further response as well. There is one development that I would like to mention in this context, that of hyperscale data centers. Within the Ministry of Electronics and IT, we have prepared a scheme, a policy on hyperscale data centers, and also a scheme for incentivizing investments in hyperscale data centers here in India. The current scale of hyperscale data centers here in India is counted in terms of the power consumed. It comes to around 200 megawatt. And our effort will be to come out with a policy and scheme that aims for a tenfold growth in this in a very short time span. So this is something which once again will be very, very useful for those entities that get into manufacturing of high-end servers that go into hyperscale data centers here. And my request to the Manufacturers Association of IT, MAIT, and other associations who are present, other dignitaries and investors who are present, is to look at this segment also very, very seriously. So with this, we are always very open to suggestions from the industry, and we always have plenty of discussion before we come out with schemes, and we'll continue to do that. Hopefully, you will also see something more emerging from our side. The areas that we are currently working on are on wearables and hearables. We have started work on also on drones and robotics, and these are the new segments that will soon get added to the different areas that we are incentivizing. Separately, there are schemes for batteries, and that comes from Niti Aayog, but we are also supporting it in many many ways, both in terms of R&D and some allied activities and materials. As Nitin mentioned, there is also tremendous scope for mechanics, for enclosures, for connectors, for many of the ancillary areas. In this, the investment required sometimes is of a much lower order. So even smaller manufacturers can easily get into that. And my belief is that those who are, wondering where their next investment should go, electronics is definitely the place to invest in. And India is the geography that will reward you for your investments and for coming out with newer product segments here in India. Thanks a lot for inviting me, and best wishes for your deliberations.
Thank you, Shri Ajay Sahni, for your notable keynote address. You rightly mentioned that electronics form an inseparable part of each sector, and with the growing demand and innovation, India has a huge possibility of enhancing its manufacturing prowess and also in becoming a world leader. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we now have a few products to be launched. The Make in India server and Make in India telecom product. It is said that an enabling environment helps society to thrive and excel. Our Honorable Prime Minister of India gave the clarion call for Atmanirbhar or self-reliant India and being vocal for local products and making them global. 2030, the decade of electronic manufacturing, and India's aspiration is to become a design-led manufacturing economy. We are proud to unveil designed and manufactured in India IT and telecom products as a testimony to the fact that if we set out with a clear goal and have an enabling ecosystem, we will succeed in our self-reliance endeavors. The Tyron Make in India servers proudly manufactured in India from the House of NetWeb, India's leading indigenous server company based out of Faridabad. Along with the Matrix Argo, the Red Dot award-winning biometric controllers researched, designed, and manufactured in India from the House of Matrix Telecom and Security, niche indigenous telecom and security hardware product company based out of Baroda. With this, may I request for the virtual unveiling of these two launches, the Make in India server and Make in India telecom product, requesting our distinguished dignitaries to do the needful. Can we have the launch, please? Thank you, esteemed dignitaries, for the launches. May I now invite Shri Arijit Sen, Vice President, Government Affairs and Public Policy, Vivo, to kindly read the message sent by Shri Sanjay Shamrao Dhotre, Honorable Minister of State for Education, Communications and Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. Please read the message.
Thank you, Sanhati. The following is the message from Shri Dhotre. I am proud to see the unveiling of sophisticated designed and made in India products at MAIT ETMS 2021, a family of high-end servers and telecom products, and a telecom IP PBX and biometrics controller. These are an outcome of India's strategy towards Atmanirbharata in electronic products. I congratulate MAIT for bringing together global electronic manufacturing and R&D leaders on the heels of various PLI schemes that my ministry has announced. I wish you all the best. End of quote.
Thank you, Shri Sen. Ladies and gentlemen, MAIT is delighted to present the report on the recently concluded project on e-waste awareness. The project conducted by MAIT under the aegis of Ministry of Electronics and IT. The project was taken by MAITI in response to the clarion call of our Prime Minister on the importance of creating awareness on the responsible management of e-waste. May I now invite Dr. Sandeep Chatterjee, Scientist F, to kindly talk to us about the e-waste awareness project.
Internet.
He needs to unmute his...
Yes. Can I have my presentation? Yes. Thank you, mate. Good afternoon, Secretary Sir, Mr. Nitin, Mr. Krishnan, Mr. Rishi, Mr. Arijit, Mr. George and his team. This is a immense pleasure for me to give some salient features around one of the important program MAIT has taken in under the call of Honorable Prime Minister in 2015, and we have implemented this in 2000 up to 2020. Can you change the slide? This program actually initiated the extended producer responsibility in the country. When it was started in 2015, we have found this is a challenging task to convince the manufacturers to have the streamline of collection of electronic waste. And we have initiated discussion with different stakeholders as well as the industry association. MAIT has taken the lead. In the NASCOM forum, actually, Prime Minister told that with the ministry and other industry associations should initiate this program. And MAIT has led, along with NASCOM, CMA, ELSINA, NILET, and GIZ has conducted this program. In this program, we have actually conducted in 31 state and union territory. We have reached almost 1.7 million, 9 different stakeholders. We have created contents which are specific to the stakeholders and which are rich and vetted by international experts, which are available in one of the dedicated website, greeny.gov.in. While I started in 2015, it was actually funded by MAIT, but with 2-3 years, we have got almost 40% funds shared by the industry. More than 30 brand participated in this program, and Ministry of Environment and Forest and CPCB was also onboarded in the second phase of the program. And some of the salient features I should mention, this program has created almost 1,500 trained manpower in the country, and they are available in our Greeny website. We have used the social media very actively. We have created dedicated Facebook page, dedicated YouTube account. We have an app, and they are very active. Our website has been hit by almost 1 crore participants. We are using now this program. We have concluded in last March 2020. But PROs, manufacturers are using this platform and doing the program for sustainable manner. And CPCB also recognized this program. They are whatever the spending has done by the different brand owners has been used as a their annual report in EPR compliance. Now, if you see the compliance on EPR also from starting from 17 only 5%, now we have gone up to 50% this year. So this is a huge success. And if you see the formal recycler also, we have initially 100 recycler in the country. Now we have a 407. And we have done also third party assessment by GIZ, and they have found that this program is 81% participants have said that this is one of the best program. 62% has agreed that objective has been made, and almost 74% has agreed that the tool used are very interactive and engaging. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chatterjee, for that presentation on the e-waste awareness program. Let us now see Greeny in action, creating awareness amongst our young children from classes 9 to 12. We have a short video with Greeny in action.
Sanhati,
can we have the video, please?
We have dropped the video, Sanhati. You can go to the unveiling of the report.
All right. Fine. Well, Ladies and gentlemen, as you have just seen, Dr. Tatty gave us some inputs on the e-waste report, and we are now going to launch this. So may I request our esteemed dignitaries to kindly join in the release of this report. Thank you, esteemed dignitaries, for the launch of this report. I would like to now invite Sri Rajkumar Rishi, Vice President MAIT, Managing Director, CSP India, Dell, to kindly conclude with a vote of thanks.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So let me first of all, thank the entire, dignitaries for having taken time out and attended this session. Look, as we, speakers before me spoke, this is actually a golden period in the electronic manufacturing era, as far as the Indian opportunity is concerned. And if you look at purely from a consumption standpoint, the opportunity ahead of us is humongous. And if you look at from the overall, environment in the country, I think it has never been better in terms of, promoting local manufacturing. So it's very heartening to, listen to, our Honorable Secretary from the IT Ministry, Mr. Ajay Sani. Thank you so much for your, inputs. And before that, I'd like to actually thank you for your support that you've been giving to the industry over last year and many years. The last year has been, I would say, particularly full of action. We've seen PLI scheme coming in various categories that everyone spoke about it. MAIT actually worked very closely with MAIT to give our proposals. We were able to get inputs from all the industry members and share those inputs with MAIT. And some of them were included. Nitin before me spoke about the fact that we can further fine tune the some of the elements of the scheme. I'm sure those inputs will also be considered. So, but having said that, we really want to thank, on behalf of the industry, want to thank the ministry and the government for taking very concrete steps to help not only increase consumption in the country but also to improve manufacturing environment in the country. And I'm sure all the industry members are currently evaluating very closely as to how do we get the best, let's say, leverage out of these opportunities and the schemes that the government of India have provided, and make sure that we make them part of our overall global supply chain. I would also like to thank Dr. Sandeep Chatterjee. I mean, extremely, I would say, insightful, his inputs that he shared with us. And also like to thank the other speakers, especially Mr. Mike Conbro from Cisco. Great to see that global leaders are seeing the opportunity in the country. So all in all, a great session so far. This particular seminar is there for next 2 days, both the half days, and we are all looking forward to getting more insightful inputs from the various speakers that will follow in the subsequent sessions, but also the panel discussions which are going to happen. We have key policy makers who are going to attend these discussions. There are key industry leaders globally and from the domestic world also who are going to attend this session. So really looking forward to that. I'd like to also take this opportunity to compliment the MAIT Secretariat. A lot of work has been going on George and team. They've been doing a huge amount of hard work in preparing for this session. Not an easy time. Some of the team members are down with COVID, so never an easy time to prepare and still get the session on. Still, this is a virtual session, but it's worked out pretty well. And also, one last time, thank the secretary. Thanks so much for attending and sharing his insightful inputs with us. So looking forward to the rest of the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shri Rajkumar Rishi, for your warm vote of thanks. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now conclude the inaugural session. Thank you for being a part of it. You're now requested to join session 1, which is in Audi 2. Session 1 starts at 4:30 p.m. For that, you need to sign out from this Audi using the red signal on your screen and then log in to Audi 2.